Welcome to Walkabout the Galaxy, the cheerful astronomy podcast, where the science is universal, the opinions are personal, and the trivia is androidal.
What?
The trivia is androidal.
Okay.
All right. I'll try to enunciate moving forward, Jim.
Androidal. It's just not a word.
It's not a word.
Oh, it's totally a word.
Now it is.
We are Strange Charm, up and top the Astroquarks, also known as Josh Caldwell.
Addie Dove.
Hannah Sargent.
And Jim Cooney.
Coming to you from the actual, honest-to-goodness, real-life Walkabout studio at the University of Central Florida. Remember to subscribe to us on all platforms, including YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our YouTube videos now feature chapter breaks, so you can skip past all of Jim's stuff if you wish. Follow the Astroquarks on TikTok, where we publish a 30-second video once per blue moon.
Perfect.
Nice.
We're also at www.walkaboutthegalaxy.com, where you can see how to order a Walkabout shirt and support STEM education at the same time. You can also contact us at wtg@ucf.edu, and definitely do contact us that way if you order a shirt, so we can get it to you as soon as possible. Our Stumper today was inspired in part by our debut TikTok video,
Excellent.
which featured the complicated rotational orbital dance of the planet Mercury,
Jim loves some Mercury.
personified by Jim Cooney. Top work.
It was so good.
It was so good.
Did you include any special relativity?
No.
Oh, he had that extra little processional. Yes, you did have that extra little processional error.
Yeah, if you play it at like half speed, then you'll see.
That's right. If you play it backwards.
Oh.
The Stumper is, if it wasn't going to do any harm to our beautiful ecosphere here on planet Earth,
Sure.
but you just wanted to exercise some godlike powers to adjust the rotation rate of the planet for your personal pleasure with no negative consequences. All the birds and the bees and the fishes and the animals and the plants are all still delighted with whatever you set up magically.
Sure.
What would you like it to be? What would you like the Earth's rotation rate to be, and why?
I feel like I just don't have a good answer to this.
Yeah.
Because also I really like seasons,
Okay.
and I like,
So that means you probably don't want it to be a super slow rotation.
yeah, and I like the length of the day mostly as it is.
Okay. That's fine. You can say 23 hours and 56 minutes sidereal if you want.
I think maybe like, I don't know, variable throughout the year might be fun.
Oh,
That's complicated.
interesting. That's throwing a wrench that I had not anticipated when I came up with this
You gave us a lot of freedom, so.
Yeah, okay.
I'm definitely variable, but on a weekly basis.
Oh.
So I'm thinking, I would just want more rest on weekends. I want my Saturdays and Sundays to be longer than the rest of the week.
Okay, so you want
Nice.
like 28-hour days.
Yeah, on the weekends.
And holidays, so
Yeah.
Christmas
Okay.
and everything else. I just want a bit more time to
Well,
enjoy.
you caught me, because if I totally would have made it against the rules
How about weekends
to play
and then
around that way.
like the 29th through 31st of each month?
Longer. Yeah. So I thought about just generally extending it so that I could have more sleep, and I thought no,
Right.
because then
Yeah.
the powers that be would exploit that and make
Yes.
us work longer. So I thought,
Yeah.
I know I will restrict it to the weekend.
I see.
I like it. But what
Okay.
about, but then people that work on the weekend, that sucks for them.
Yeah, it does suck for them.
That's true.
Yeah.
Jim, what about you? Will you?
No, I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it.
You're going to stick with my original.
I'm gonna stick with a. But
imagined
I'm gonna
constraint.
speed this son of a gun up a lot.
Oh, really?
I'm gonna go real fast, because if you go real fast,
Lots of sunrises and sunsets.
well, it's not even that. But if you go real fast, I'm gonna go real fast.
How fast?
So that
Oh, God.
so that my centrifugal force roughly balances my gravity,
Oh.
and I can
wow.
jump.
How fast is that?
Not
Did you calculate
no,
it?
I didn't calculate it.
Then I don't like it.
Oh, come on.
I didn't calculate it. It's
Do it
just
right now.
Well, we can figure it
whatever.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, you could figure it out, but it's
One
fast. You calculate it while I'm saying how
not
awesome
doing
it's
that,
going to be.
sorry.
Anyway, not exactly equal. I don't want to be weightless
You
or anything
wanna-
like that.
you
But I
wanna
want to
weigh
be
10 pounds
I want
or
to weigh 10
something.
pounds, and then I could jump real high and dunk
Okay.
that basketball and all that kind of fun stuff. Yeah, oh yeah.
The Olympics would be awesome.
The Olympics will be friggin' amazing.
Well,
They're
it's-
already amazing.
The
They are.
powers
They
that
are.
the powers that be would adjust to that too if we follow
Oh, that's true.
Hannah's
There would be
reasoning.
different Olympics
They,
rules.
basketball rim would be 100 feet
Oh,
high.
but wouldn't it be great? Because then you could have like the weekend Olympics with like the super, with the different rules.
Well, you're all wrong. The correct answer is 25 hours.
25.
Why 25?
Because we all need an extra hour of sleep.
Okay.
As long as it doesn't.
As long as you get it,
Yeah.
you still have an 8-hour workday.
Why
So
don't
the
we?
nights are always longer, so it's only in night
So you just
time
want to
when
live on
it's long.
Mars?
No, because Mars has other drawbacks. As I said, in this scenario, the Earth still has all the birds and the bees, which Mars is lacking.
Can you tell us about the birds and the bees, Josh?
Well, we will talk a little bit about
In a 5-part
hypothetical
series.
birds and bees
Oh, my.
on Mars today,
Oh my.
because we will talk about some of the prospects for life on Mars and some new research.
Future
that-
life?
No.
Oh, okay. So only some of the birds and the bees.
What?
Never mind.
Anyway, we're going to talk about some new research that
Okay.
sheds light on the prospects for past life on Mars.
So spoiler: this will not be an alien sex episode,
Damn it.
as some of our past ones have been.
We should make that a regular, recurring theme.
Yeah.
The formation of large moons, which also is frequently
Associated with alien sex.
not exactly where I was going with that. Frequently associated with life on Earth,
And
the Earth's moon,
and the rotation of the Earth, yeah.
and the rotation of the Earth. It's always associated with the rotation of the Earth, and frequently associated with the formation or origin of life on Earth.
True.
And Jim has a bouncy universe.
I've heard that
Tell
about
us
Jim's
about it.
universe.
But first, this episode of Walkabout the Galaxy is brought to you by Giant Impacts.
Oh no.
Ooh, scary.
Oh yeah, sometimes size does matter. Just ask the proto-Earth how it felt to have a Mars-sized planet smack into it 4.5 billion years ago, or check in with Mercury. Where'd your mantle go, eh, Mercury? Hey, Uranus, how's it feel to be rotating on your side?
Aw.
Giant impacts have been reshaping the planetary systems since there have been planets, so the next time you want to shake things up in your world, try Giant Impacts. Giant Impacts. Ho, ho, ho.
Green giant.
Yay.
That was the only one I know.
Oh.
Literally the only one so far.
You can say it too.
You gotta be
Yeah,
on top
next
of it there. Space news, there have been a bunch of launches start off the year, and SpaceX had 3 launches in 3 days, one
Yeah.
from the West Coast.
Yeah, that was crazy. They were supposed to, 2 of them, the 2 that were here had gotten delayed a bunch
Yeah.
because of weather.
And one of them was a ship, just
Yeah, just a cruise ship.
chilling out in the
Yeah.
sea. And
Oh, I was like, they launched a cruise ship?
Yep.
How did I miss that?
Have you
I
not
thought I
seen
was
Wall-E,
paying
the
attention to these.
documentary?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy. I was like, they have to be fined or something, right?
yeah, I think they'll be investigating what happened there.
Yes.
Were those communication mix-up? They're
Yeah.
now at close to 2,100 Starlink satellites that have been launched. And I was just speaking with our colleague Richard Drusik, who does a lot of astrophotography,
And who made the
and who is
song
the
Music.
artist behind the Walkabout the Galaxy theme music.
Yes.
And he said that he was recently doing a series of night sky imaging, and he had to discard many images due
Oh,
to
no.
Oh,
satellites
my.
going by in the field of view.
Did you have to discard them, or do you just like?
He did discard them
Okay.
as it happened.
Okay.
There is the debut launch from the Space Coast here in Florida of the Astra rocket, which is a new small
Yeah.
class rocket. They had a very amazing failure not too long ago. Did you see this? Where
Yes.
the rocket
That was the horizontal one.
Oh, it went,
took off
yeah.
and it just sort of hovered for a while,
Mhm.
which was amazing because it was a failure to get to where it wanted to go. But what happened, as I understand it, was one of the engines failed
Yeah.
shortly after it took off. So it's sitting there 10 or 20 feet above the launch pad and basically hovering because the attitude control system was still good enough to
Yeah.
vector the remaining engines and keep it upright.
And the forces were
And then-
perfectly balanced up and down.
Yeah, that turns out it's that third engine, or I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's that last extra engine. All the engines except for one
Right.
just balance gravity, and then the
Wow.
extra engine gets it going.
They have just enough.
And then,
Wow.
Yeah.
but then because of that, what happened is it's sitting there, it's burning fuel, so it's getting lighter and lighter and lighter. So then eventually off it goes.
That's right.
Whoa.
So it sits there hovering for a while. Then eventually the 2 engines are enough to make it go.
Yeah.
But not
But
enough
not
to
high
get
enough
to
then at
orbit.
that point,
But
yeah.
it was just
That's really
It was
cool.
like
That's
if you're
right. There was
gonna
a different
fail-
one that went like horizontal.
Yeah.
or not, or it went sideways, like it.
And then
Okay.
it
It
like
did a
fell over
lateral
and
move and then
exploded.
fell over.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, yeah,
But yeah, because Astra's been launching up in Alaska.
yes.
So this will be their first Cape Canaveral.
But it was sort of a beautiful, it's like, we failed, but we're awesome at
Yeah.
the same time, because look how good all our
As
systems
failures
are.
go, it's
That, yeah.
Also,
that
it's
is
super
pretty
impressive that they're like just at the limit of like minimum amount
Right.
of engines that they can have to get into orbit.
Kind of all chemical
think most of
propulsion
them are.
engines really are. If you look
Yeah.
at, for most of them, how slowly they leave the pad.
Yeah.
And I haven't worked this out. I took Elon Musk's word for it.
It's
But
dangerous.
if you look at the payload capacity of rockets compared to their total weight, it's a tiny fraction.
Yeah.
It's like 5%. And that basically means, and you know, that if they were smart, you'd say, why don't you make the payload capacity 20% of the total mass? You can't.
You can't.
Because you increase the payload mass, you got to increase the fuel
Yep.
and the engines, and all of that mass keeps adding up. So
Yeah.
we're really at the hairy limit here on the Earth.
Darn gravity, man.
Yeah, if the gravity was 10% more,
Only if
something
the
like
Earth was
that.
spinning
If we were
faster.
spinning faster, see, it'd be so much
That's
easier.
right. That's where Jim's solution comes in. If we were
Yep.
swimming much swimming,
We were swimming faster through the galaxy.
if we were spinning much faster, it might work out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so anyway,
Is there
that
other
was
space
cool.
news? Probably.
Oh yeah, they're
The-
deorbiting the space station.
Excuse me.
They're deorbiting the space station,
Which one?
the International Space Station.
When?
Not
10
now.
years.
Okay.
Right now, if
Got-
you look out your
got-
windows, guys.
got my
Because like the last
attention.
announcement I heard was them extending its operations through 2030 something, but
Yeah, so the plan is to finish up in the early 2030s and then deorbit into the Pacific Ocean, guided by some Russian
is
rockety
Taco Bell going to
things.
have a thing down in the ocean?
I hope the cruise ships pay attention to those
Yeah.
warnings.
Probably.
Yeah, there's been some complaints because people have been questioning how well can you kind of target
A spot in the ocean.
for something
the
that
Pacific's
like the
pretty
IS,
big.
but as in like the ISS, it's a funny shape. It's quite big, and we don't know how it will break up.
Yeah.
All those questions.
Yeah.
So,
But it's always been the plan to deorbit the ISS.
Yes.
From the
Yeah.
get-go, that was always the plan. So
Yeah.
what the news is now, they've like said this
This is it.
I thought
no
it was,
more
yeah, I
extensions.
think it's 2031 is the
Yeah.
year that I saw.
2031. That is well beyond the original date that they talked about when they designed it. And of course, they have to the parts for the ISS are rated for a certain
Yeah.
period of time. They're under strain because it's a pressurized system. And so you don't want to just like, oh, it's okay, we'll leave it up there. And it takes effort to keep it up there because it'll come down
Yeah.
in an uncontrolled way.
And it marks kind of this transition now for NASA to basically support commercial space stations, and there will still be
Right.
science and NASA astronauts heading to these commercial stations, and NASA will give them all of their lessons that they've learned, but they're basically handing over that baton.
Yeah.
Do we have a time frame for when we will see the first commercial space station? So we're involved here at UCF tangentially
Yeah.
with Orbital Reef,
Oh yes.
commercial space station, which is a Blue Origin.
Led by Blue,
and
but it's a bunch of.
is Bigelow part of that? Northrop
Bigelow does
Grumman?
not exist anymore,
I knew that.
I think.
was testing you.
unfortunately. Yeah.
But in any event, that's one. Any thoughts on when we'll see those? Will we see a commercial space station before 2031?
I think we'll see parts of it. I don't think it'll be fully operational.
So do you think we'll have parts of a moon station before we have a commercial Earth station?
How do you define moon station?
As in an orbiting
Like Gateway?
module that a crew can live
Yeah. I think Gateway
A
will
crew-
be there.
An
before-
orbiting module that a crew can live in?
in. Yeah,
That's what Gateway is.
that's the plan.
Well, Gateway is not really to live in.
Originally it was.
Well, as in-
Currently it's a propulsion module, but
Right.
and docking module, but yeah.
As in where a crew could be present in.
For an hour, yes.
Okay.
For days, no.
Okay.
But, and I think that there will be human things on the surface of the moon again before 2031.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be a station.
But not
Yeah.
permanent,
Yeah.
but maybe things that people
I
could
agree.
go visit again
Yeah.
and still, go inside.
Human tended is like the
Human
phrase that
tended
they
is a
throw
good
around.
phrase, yeah, for that.
Do you think we'll have human human stations will be on the surface?
Like permanently habited?
Quasi-permanent, yeah.
Quasi-permanent.
Or like
maybe
the-
take a
the-
vacation, but
Or you have rotating crews that are
Yeah.
every 6 months.
2040.
Or something. Oh wow.
2040.
Yeah.
That's too far.
It is. I'm just thinking. Well, we'll say 2035 or 2032, and
It's
then
fine
we'll
for
miss
you
it.
youngsters.
Yeah.
Not that young anymore.
You're gonna be so old by then.
I know.
Yeah.
My kid'll
Well,
be.
speaking of the moon, there's new research by Eric Asfog and friends at
There is.
University of Arizona about the formation of moons.
The lead author is actually in Rochester, I think. But yeah.
University of Rochester.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about what kinds of planet-moon systems do you get? And our sponsor is Giant Impacts.
Yeah.
And we know that the current understanding for the formation of the Earth's moon is that it was a Mars-sized protoplanet smacked into the Earth,
Yeah,
essentially
there's-
obliterating both objects.
Yeah, there was that big result that came out a few years ago about like the I don't know how to say it,
Oh,
synestia
synestia.
or whatever, which was like, so the general concept is that you have a big thing that smashes into the Earth. It creates this sort of like orbiting debris cloud, and like what the shape and sort of contents of that cloud are then determine what gets made out of it. And there was there was that paper
Yep.
about like I don't remember exactly what a synestia was.
The synestia is the short-lived
Cloud.
quasi-molten blob
Yeah.
created by these giant impacts.
Yeah, but there's lots of other models that sort of look at, like Robin Knopp's done these for a long time.
Right.
Other groups have done these for a long time that look at, what, like how much material gets thrown out. Is it like gaseous or is it a molten state? You have different types of codes you have to use to do all these simulations.
Yeah.
But, like the Earth-Moon system is fairly unique in our.
It's unusual. The moon is one of the largest moons in the solar system, while the Earth is not one of the largest planets
Yeah,
in the
it's
solar
like
system.
highest ratio. Pluto-Charon is pretty close.
Right, which may also be the result of a giant impact.
Yeah.
And the moon, we love to talk about life and extraterrestrials and stuff like that. And we may be in a special place here because, and
We hate to say
having
that.
a large moon may
Yeah.
be one of the special things because it does things, as you were saying, to the rotation period.
Makes tides.
Yeah. So a lot of
Cosmic
people are
tides.
interested in like, okay, how common is it? What do you need to make a big moon around a potentially habitable planet?
Isn't a big moon one of the things? Then it stabilize our axis tilt, right?
Mhm.
Which is
One of the
also
big
critical,
important
which
things.
Mars doesn't have. So it has crazy seasons because its tilt, its obliquity.
Yeah, and the seasons change
changes.
drastically over eons because
Right.
the axis tilt changes. Yeah.
Yeah. And living organisms don't like
Don't.
rapid change.
No.
Yeah. Or dramatic change.
Like
But,
here in Florida,
yeah.
89 degrees today and 60 degrees tomorrow.
I had
Yeah.
a woolly hat on this week.
I know. It was so great.
What did you say? You had to put a hat on?
Yeah, a woolly hat.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
it was so great. I loved it.
Um,
But yeah, so they did these. So they did some new simulations, looking at like relative sizes of things and and then they looked at both things like the Earth, where you have like molten or you have rock distributions, and then they did like icy giants, like Uranus or something, where there's a solid rocky core and then an icy mantle, and looked at what kind of disks were formed and like what kind of moons you could get out of that, and what impact speeds and sizes of impactors and things like that influence.
And it's a pretty complicated process to make, ultimately to make the moon. It requires a lot of these sophisticated numerical simulations, what they call smooth particle hydrodynamics codes,
SPH.
combined with in-body codes. And it's partly because if you, in a very simplistic way, I was actually at a meeting in Milton Keynes, I think.
my last
Your
home.
alma mater
Yeah.
home. I believe it was at Milton Keynes. I was at a meeting a long time ago, and somebody was poo-pooing the idea that the Earth's moon formed from a giant impact because this individual,
Was 80?
yes,
Okay.
How long ago
And-
was this meeting?
20 years.
Okay.
Okay.
And this person, and I'm saying this person not to protect any identity, I don't remember his name,
Mhm.
but was using a very simplistic idea of if you hit something and you knock something off,
Oh.
if you hit something and knock something off, that something follows a ballistic trajectory, it's going to re-impact the thing it got knocked off of
Mhm.
inevitably.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But what happens in these giant impacts is, Addie was just saying, is you make this big gaseous quasi-molten gaseous blob, and that gas affects the motion of all the stuff that's in the cloud and provides some what we call pressure support
Right. The
Yeah.
physics
to
is more
the
than just
objects
gravity.
in the disk. It's
Yeah.
more than gravity. There's this additional forces involved that put things in orbit, and then they can glom together and form stuff. And then you have got the tidal interactions that
Yeah.
determine, do they just go off and orbit the sun, or do they fall back in and re-impact the Earth later? So it's a big, complicated problem.
Yeah. And they found that, like in the case you were talking about where you have this sort of gaseous disk, sometimes that creates drag on the particles too, and they do, in certain
Spiral
scenarios,
in.
they spiral in and re-impact the surface. So like in some scenarios, it's hard, if you have too much impact, basically, it's hard to form a moon. And then depending on what the ratio of rock to ice is, it's hard to form a moon as well. So there's actually only sort of a narrow range of
Sweet spot.
impact energies, really, and relative ratios of sizes of the planets that will work to make moons that are as large as our moon.
And one of the conclusions, I guess, is that you're more likely to get that kind of thing around a smaller planet.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of the exoplanets that we've been discovering are these super Earths.
Yeah. 6+ Earth masses.
They're
kind of
several
thing.
times the size,
That
or
they
at
were
least
looking
1.6 times the linear size of the Earth,
Okay.
which corresponds to much more in mass. I've always been sort of down on the idea of those as good habitable planets just because.
Just on principle.
Yes.
You can't jump very high.
I just have.
Yeah.
That's
What's
exactly
the
right.
point?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
a drag
Planet.
It's going
to
to be
be
a
on.
drag.
Yeah, heavy gravity, but
Turns out.
they're fairly different than the Earth.
Yeah.
That's a fairly big difference. And here is a new difference that we weren't thinking about.
Yeah, it's hard to make the moons.
That they've discovered is it's hard to make an appreciable size moon
And that's for rocky planets. For icy planets, it was less than like an Earth mass.
to be
it's
able
hard
to
to make
create
a large moon.
a good moon.
Yeah.
So
That's no moon.
to the
Oh, we
extent
wouldn't want to live there anyway.
No.
you wouldn't want to live there anyway,
Not nice.
regardless of
Too
the rotation
cold.
period. What if they had
Too
a
many
really
hats.
They'd have
what
really
if they
great
had
Winter
good
Olympics.
weekends?
Good weekends. Wow, now that's
Yeah.
a game changer.
Now that's a game changer.
And they'd have good Winter Olympics.
Now we're
too.
talking.
Oh, okay. I'm
What's the
in.
weekend schedule and the Winter Olympics schedule? Are you a Winter Olympics?
I'm in any Olympics, any
Oh,
sport.
are you? And so they just kicked off as we're recording this.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
are you going to be tracking most closely? And
Actually, I was talking with some friends yesterday. We're kind of really into curling.
Nice.
I was
Oh,
going to
yes.
joke about that.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
true.
Curling's
true.
pretty fun.
It's just so now we want to find somewhere to go try it.
I've
just
done
because.
it.
Have you?
Once when I lived in Colorado.
Yeah.
It was both fun and my knees hurt really bad the
wow.
next day because you
you're
like
sort of crouching.
yeah
the
you
whole
crouch
time.
and like sort of slide on your knee a lot.
Yeah. You haven't ever done it.
I've never done it.
I
Which
bet-
is, it'd be weird to come to Florida to try curling.
But there's an ice
But-
complex here. I bet we could find a curling thing and
Yeah.
go do it.
Just need some brooms and
Yeah.
a big rock.
Yeah.
Well, we have plenty of rocks here that I'm
Yeah.
sure we can.
Yeah, there he
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. So, well, interesting developments in the role of the moon in the Earth's.
Once again, our moon is pretty special.
It's a special moon. Let me drop your trivia on you before we move out to Mars and the Bouncy universe.
Okay.
Well, we forgot to do nerd news.
We did forget to do nerd
And
news.
so the
We could
trivia is
do
nerd news
We
related.
could do a quick nerd news.
We've been talking about Boba Fett.
Yes,
The
book of
Boba
the book
Fett.
of Boba Fett.
On Disney Plus.
Hannah's pretty
Hannah,
excited
do you
to
know
talk
who
about
Boba
this.
Fett is?
Do you know who he is?
He's
Yeah.
in Star Wars.
That's good. That's
Okay.
good. And honestly,
Somehow-
until recently, that's pretty much a lot of like
That's
what you
pretty
would
much
say.
Was he a bounty hunter?
He is. Good
Yay.
job.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm sort of heartened that your ignorance of Star Wars is comparable to your ignorance of Star Trek.
Yeah. She's
Yeah.
just
That's
That
not
makes me feel a
a
little bit better
sci-fi
about you.
person.
I've seen the Star Wars films, and that's the
Okay.
extent of my knowledge.
That's pretty much
All of them?
you need to do. though.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
you're fine.
Yeah.
In any event, there's a series
That's all
about
there
Boba
is.
Fett, and I haven't been entirely
It's not been
thrilled.
super exciting, and it's weird. So we've had a lot of discussions about this because Boba Fett was like Eric's favorite character for a long time.
Not anymore.
But it's weird because they chose to tell this not without too many spoilers. They chose to tell a part of his life that's like later than
Right.
when we first meet him, and also when he's like sort of been reformed. And I don't think that's spoiling anything. But like the Boba Fett you know in the original movies is like this badass bounty hunter,
Right.
who like everybody is terrified of, and he's been basically like reformed in this book that we're in these chapters of his life, and it's sort of weird.
So it's just following a good, happy man.
Not
in
even,
some sense,
but kind
also
of, yeah.
it bounces around and tells it non-linearly, which
Yeah.
sometimes works, and I think it doesn't work in this show
Yeah, it was sort of weird in this
because you're like seeing, it's like, okay, that's fine, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
And then it's not till 3 episodes later that you see what happened before. It's like, oh, okay,
show. Yeah,
why didn't you just tell me that at the beginning so I would care?
yeah,
But it's gotten better since they stopped having it be about Boba Fett.
yeah. So they've
Yeah, I was
the
going to say
last
this is very disappointing because this is the second, live action show
Yeah.
that they've had. What was the other one?
The
The
Mandalorian.
Mandalorian, which was
Yes.
so good.
And Boba Fett shows up in The Mandalorian, and
Right.
so their paths cross, we know.
Right. I think probably there's just no chance of having a decent show because it doesn't have baby frickin' Yoda. Or does it? Don't you spoil it for me!
No spoilers.
Okay.
Well, the Book of Boba Fett takes place contemporaneously,
With
roughly,
The
in the same
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
as that.
Okay. I want to watch it.
Yeah.
But
So our
Is
trivia.
there other
our
is there other nerd news to talk about?
Well, I'll give you a trivia. Maybe it'll inspire
Okay.
you to remember some. But the trivia is about artificial intelligences in science fiction, TV, and film. And
Great.
Not
Awesome.
Hannah's favorite trivia
so
questions.
set up to.
If
well,
it's set
Hannah
in
has
Wally, then I'm in.
Yes.
Hannah has been doing remarkably well in the trivia, so
Sure.
it's fine to have a trivia that is not set up for her.
That's fine.
Got to challenge her thing. I'm going to give you
Should guess it right anyway.
8 different AIs,
Okay.
and then 5 quotes, and you have to
I have a
figure
good
out.
nerd news.
You have to figure out which
Oh man. Okay.
which
can't
AI
remember.
spoke each quote.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the nature of trivia, Hannah.
Yeah, I know, but
is whether or
when
not
you give
remember.
me a long list of
If you
things,
can't-
I
No,
will,
but he'll
I will
repeat
ask
it.
you to repeat it.
He's gonna repeat it.
You
Five
can't
times.
go on. You can't go on Jeopardy and then click in and say, "I know this. I just can't
Oh
remember it right now."
man. Amy.
So here are the 8 robots.
So good.
Okay,
I know.
and I'll come back to this all later. Right, you have the robot in the
hero.
original. These are in chronological order of their first appearance.
Okay.
The robot in the original Lost in Space TV show.
Okay.
M5, which only Jim will remember probably, or Addie knows it too, from the original Star Trek, an episode you haven't seen.
I only have different associations with M5.
HAL 9000 from 2001.
Seen that one.
Nice.
Okay.
Great.
C3PO,
Seen that one.
there you go.
R2.
Have you seen Alien?
A long time ago.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah.
Me too.
Ash, the android in the original
yeah.
Alien.
Okay.
The Terminator, the Schwarzenegger Terminator.
Yep.
Data from Star Trek The Next Generation. And
I thought there were 5.
5 quotes.
Oh, okay.
Ava, the machina
Yeah.
of Ex Machina, or Machina.
Yeah, I don't know how to say that word.
Um,
That was a movie.
So those are your sets of
It wasn't
potential
wrong.
androids. Obviously, each android will not have a line represented in your answers here, but no android
Okay.
is represented or artificial intelligence is represented twice.
Okay.
I'll give you the quotes now, and then I'll give you a chance to repeat after we've gone through our other science. Your quotes are, "Sometimes I just don't understand human behavior."
It's like anyone. I
Yeah.
say that daily.
Come
Are
with
you AI?
yes. If you're not saying that, then
Yeah.
there's something wrong with you. Right? Yeah. Come with me if you want to live. I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over.
I think I know some of these.
Isn't it strange to create something that hates you? And finally, it does not compute.
Oh man.
I think
So
I've
we'll
got,
come back
also
to
say
that.
I've
that
got
daily.
2.
I put some, it's a range of difficulties, a range of
Yeah.
challenges there. Let's move on from the Earth Moon system to Mars, where there's an update on life
Mars.
potential.
I decided to read about rocky objects beyond Earth Moon. So
Well,
I
you're-
finally
Good
made
job.
it to Mars.
Well,
Okay.
and you're on this extra special, top secret 00 level task force to
We don't
identify
talk about it.
water on
No.
Mars. right?
Yes, I'm trying to learn about Mars.
Yeah.
And also, I occasionally dip into geology, and so this article perked my interest. So there's been there's a team that's done some research looking at one of these Martian meteorites. So we haven't had a sample return from Mars yet, by humans, but we have had meteorites which have come from impacts that have hit Mars, and then these chunks of rock fall to Earth.
There's the like classically famous one, the Allen Hills meteorite that
Right.
that maybe had life in it back in the day. But
Yes.
it wasn't life.
Yeah.
And this one's got a fun name actually. So its official name is NWA 7034.
Yes, I love the NWA.
Northwest Africa, but
Yeah.
its party name is Black Beauty, which I quite like.
Oh,
And just remind people why it's identified as NWA.
because it's from Northwest Africa, is like, and so like most of the meteorites that we find, we identify them by the location that they're found in.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's something more to why it's identified as Northwest Africa instead of Morocco.
Oh, I actually don't know.
Is
Because there's like steel in them from there.
Right.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
not allowed to go in there and
If
take
you say it's from
meteorites.
Northwest Africa, you're not actually saying I took this from Morocco or Algeria or Libya.
Even though you are.
In which case, those individual countries could say,
Give it back.
You've stolen something that
Yeah.
belongs to us.
Oh,
so
interesting.
it's
Yeah.
political.
Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
So
This
meteorite,
this whole black market meteorite
scavengers,
thing.
yeah. And two of the greatest places to get meteorites on the Earth are northern Africa, because you have a desert and meteorites stand out. There's not a lot of erosion, and also you were alluding to the Allen Hills,
Yeah.
which are in
Cold places?
Antarctica.
Antarctica, right?
Antarctica.
Yeah. Okay.
I couldn't
Where-
remember if it was Arctic or
like,
Antarctic. I was like, I know
no,
it's
it's
cold.
Antarctica. Yeah.
Yes.
Wait, there aren't as many meteorites from the Arctic. I don't feel
Yeah,
like.
it melts there all the time.
Yeah, we don't go searching for them as much
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
as we
and
do
it's
in
moving
Antarctica.
around, and it's not a landy place.
No.
So Antarctica is a great place because you've got, and then the glaciers are always bringing new sort of surface area for you to check out.
And there's
NWA was also a hip hop
oh, right.
Oh, I remember that.
from back in the
I
day.
remember what it stands for.
So,
I'm not going to say it.
so this,
That happens if, our dear listeners, if you just heard a loud thump.
It was not one
a
of
new
us.
meteorite.
Yeah, then a meteorite lands on the roof of my office apparently every day at about this time. Apologies.
Maybe it's a bird coming to roost.
Yeah.
Really aggressively.
So what did we find out about
So what
this?
did we find out? So
No,
this
no,
meteorite,
no.
Black Beauty, this team have found some zircon inside the matrix of this small piece of rock, and zircon is really important when it comes to trying to understand whether there have been very massive impacts. So we found these features within zircon that have been exposed to like. I'm trying to think, what is the value? 30 gigapascals, 20 to 30 gigapascals at least of
20 to 30 million pascals, and there's 100,000 pascals in atmospheric pressure. Is that right?
yeah. So a lot of pressure, and it's generally found in these like central peaks of these massive impact craters. So we found them on Earth, we found them on the Moon, but not yet on Mars until now. So the fact that they found these zircon that have been altered from these pressures indicates that there were these massive impacts going on Mars, and they've aged the meteorites to a period of time when they thought that life was going to be quite habitable or potentially habitable,
Okay.
or that Mars was going to be
It was warm and balmy.
yeah,
and
and
rivers
wet and warm.
yeah.
But what they're saying is that an impact of this scale could potentially vaporize a lot of water and do a lot of damage, and actually significantly reduce the habitability of Mars at that time.
Uh-oh.
So it's throwing a bit of a spanner in the works as to whether.
Spanner is
A
a
spanner.
wrench for our
Oh,
American
is
listeners.
that not a phrase? Oh, you should embrace that phrase. I love that
It's a
phrase.
good phrase.
Yeah, it causes an issue for people trying to understand how habitable Mars was.
We have the phrase, we just use
A wrench.
A wrench in the works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Mhm.
well, I don't like it.
yeah. Can you sometimes say a monkey wrench, or am I imagining?
You use the phrase
thing?
monkey wrench, but you don't
Not
throw
in
that
that
in
way.
the works.
Okay,
Yeah, no.
So yeah, I just think it's really exciting that they've found these features in the zircon for the first time ever on Mars. So just
Yeah,
that's quite cool in itself.
zircon is, as you mentioned, super important. It's come up in a lot of planetary science studies trying to understand the impact history of the Earth as well,
Mhm.
because as you mentioned, is it created or it records these very high pressures or?
So the zircon is already formed, but then when it is then impacted, it gets these features within the crystals.
Okay. So it acts as a sort of nice witness strip or witness plate for very high pressure events produced by giant impacts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Our sponsor.
So
Ho ho ho!
Green giant.
I thought
Yay! There you go.
Thanks.
I thought one of the kind of leads of the article was though that it makes Mars less habitable for 30 million years or something like that, later than they thought. Why do I care about 30 million years? That seems like no time at all.
It's a drop in the temporal bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Explain yourself.
Let me call on my astrobio friends to answer this question.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same thought. When we talk about I think just recently, in fact, we were talking about the time period that water may have been flowing freely on Mars, potentially going as much as 1 billion years later than we had previously thought, and 30 million years is only a few percent of that duration. One thing that's been a long-running issue about the sort of habitability of Mars is how episodic it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
This might tie into that, and it also comes back, this episodic nature with variable tilt of the planet and things like that.
Yeah, because there's still some theories of when you have the warm, wet climate on Mars. It's after giant impacts, basically, like that they're not like long-standing warm, wet periods, but it's, you have some sort of impact that heats things up and puts things into the atmosphere, and you have flash floods, and that's where you get all these things forming. Right. It's not like.
But then that doesn't stick around. Perhaps.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things that they mentioned towards the end of the article is saying that it's either this shock event would either have occurred at more than 4.3 billion years or before 3 billion years. So it's if it's the latter that it causes problems.
I see, because it's late.
It's a lot later, because they thought that when these meteorites had been ejected from Mars, they thought that actually it was quite a low impact time period, and now this is literally just said it was a very high impact.
Okay.
sort of period of time.
Maybe fewer overall, but one big one.
One big one, yeah.
Well, casting our eyes out now to the much grander scale, I want to hear about Jim's bounce house.
The bounce house.
That's our stadium.
It's our stadium.
Been doing some astronomy in the bounce house?
Nice. That would be really terrible.
Yeah. They're referring to our stadium, which was constructed very weirdly so that when the students jump up and down in the student section, the whole frickin' stadium oscillates up and down in a way that
intentionally built that way, but they've done.
No, it was not intentionally built that way, which is why it's even scarier, right?
They've done studies and it is safe.
I feel better.
I do not trust that.
They've done studies and they did it.
Who's they? I don't believe it.
I think it's like Sudipta and some other people. They looked at the harmonics and stuff like that, and they actually did restabilize some portions of it after it was first built.
Put some stiffening agents, change the natural frequency.
I talked with Alex Cartwright about this when we were there the last time.
President of the university. Yeah.
He was like, "Yeah, they did these studies," and I was like,
I don't know. Don't trust it. Anyway, much more interesting than our bounce house is the whole universe maybe being bouncy. You know what? One of the things about cosmology that has bothered me for a long time.
Tell us.
The Big Bang.
Yeah.
Really?
In the sense that, we've been on this, humankind has been on this kind of Copernican mission, slowly realizing that, the place we live on Earth wasn't that special because Earth is huge, and then realizing Earth isn't really that special, it's just a planet around the sun, which is at the center of the universe, then realizing that wasn't really at the center of the universe, and realizing we don't live in a special place. The kind of final thing to that would be we don't really live in a special time either. And it's always bothered me. The universe, we usually say, is 14 billion years or so old. That seems to me to be strikingly young.
Okay.
14 billion years, why do we live now instead of at 14 trillion years or 14 quadrillion years or something like that? I don't know. It's a strangely early time in the universe we seem to live. I don't like it.
Well, I mean, you have to have some absolute reference frame for a natural time length to say 14 billion years is a small number or a big number. Right. So what's the natural time frequency?
Well,
Is it a very, very small interval of time if you're thinking about what's
oscillation of
naturally
a
go to like
hydrogen atom or
atomic
whatever.
scales or something? Like how do you decide 14 billion is a small number instead of a big number?
Well, because the current models, the current best accepted models of the universe indicate that the likely fate of the universe is continued expansion
Trillions
forever,
Earths or years
which
in
means
the future.
essentially infinite. If
Which
you live in
means
an
we're at the
essentially
beginning.
right, we're way too close to the beginning if the universe is going to be infinitely old. Is what I'm
Well,
saying. It bothers me.
Why?
But only if the conditions of the universe were the same throughout all of time.
Right, and they will
which
not
we
be.
know won't
They won't be. But the time scale where they will be reasonably close to the same is considerably larger than 14 billion years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it bothers me.
Okay.
Now, having said that,
Oh, we never discussed this before.
Yeah.
That this bothers you.
it bothers me.
I'm excited to learn
It's
this fact
episode
about you.
269. We're always coming up with new stuff.
Yeah.
Jim is still surprising us.
I'm still mad about something else this time.
Yes.
Okay.
So maybe a way to wiggle out of this
Okay.
is that maybe time didn't really begin 14 billion years ago.
Yeah, because what was before the Big Bang?
Right, and that's another thing that's bothered me is you have all these, if like the universe actually began 14 billion years ago, then you have all these awkward questions you have to ask about like how it happened and this, that, and the other
Yeah.
thing, and the questions that we can't answer because
Yeah.
we don't have theories of quantum physics and gravity coming together. Anyway, it's a whole thing.
TM.
Don't get him started.
Don't get me started. But there are some people who are thinking, and this is that's still the best accepted thing, and I'm not gonna. But there are some people coming up with models for the universe that are, instead of a Big Bang 14 billion years ago, there might have been a big bounce.
Mm-hmm.
So that is maybe the universe is this thing where it expands and expands and expands and expands for quite a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and then stops expanding, starts slowly collapsing
Mm-hmm.
until some point when the energy density gets high enough, and then it, boom, expands again. And the way that they've worked this out is, and you can do all of this with these beautiful models, it doesn't, the universe
When you
as
say
a
beautiful
whole...
models, my thought process leaves cosmology entirely, I have to tell you.
Fair enough. Where the universe, every time it goes through one of these bounces, it gets bigger than the time before. So the universe is ever expanding and ever getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But the
What do you mean it gets bigger?
Like it gets stretched out, so when it
right, so it expands a lot during the expansion phase. So right now the universe is expanding. Right, we're all on board with
Yes.
that. It's expanding.
it's like once you gain weight and then
It's
you
hot-
shrink
you
back down
lose-
again. You don't quite get
You
to
don't-
where
you
you were
don't-
before.
You don't get to very... Yeah,
and then
exactly.
you expand
These
again a little bit
contractions-
bigger the next
It's like
time.
someone squeezing on a balloon as it's being inflated.
Is that a thing?
Well, no.
Just to
I
annoy
don't
the
know if
person
it's a
trying to
thing or
play
not.
it.
We could try it out sometime.
TikTok video number 2 coming
Yes.
your way soon.
How
Yes.
much can we blow up the balloon
There you
for
go.
squeezing
yes.
on it?
TikTok.
We will do more TikTok videos. So we've been down a little bit. We say down. We only did one, but we're going to do more because there are lots more planets to interpretively dance
okay,
around.
but-
Anyway, we're talking about the universe. So the universe expands a lot, and then only contracts a little, and then expands a lot again, and then only contracts a little. But every time you go through one of these big bounces, the size of the horizon shrinks way, 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 way down.
Oh.
And so every time it's like a Big Bang is happening, right? And so you wouldn't know. So we are in a universe that is infinitely old. It's gone through
Okay.
infinitely many bounces.
Sure.
Our region of the universe
But
is
what's
Sure,
the
but I feel
period?
like-
What's the bounce period?
bounce period is. It depends. I mean, you can fiddle around with the model. We don't
Sure.
know. And in fact, the authors of this model came out in around 2019 or so. The authors of this model have been playing around recently and suggested that maybe it's actually not that long. It may be only a few billion years more than we have.
What?
Right.
We only have a few billion years left before we bounce.
That could be.
What?
Is that scary?
That's really scary.
Could be.
That's
In
way
fact,
scarier.
they said they could fiddle with some
Yeah.
models and make it only on the order of tens of millions of years more that the universe expanded, although that's unlikely.
What?
But we're like at the end of the universe as
Do-
we know it.
Do the
Our
people,
universe, yeah.
do the Marvel Cinematic Universe know about this?
They better.
So you were originally worried about being in a very young universe, and now we're in an aged universe that's about to die.
Right. I don't.
I like that.
I wouldn't buy those models that say we're really close, but
So
something
here's
like
the problem
yeah.
is that this is all just a nomenclature thing, right? The Big Bang, I mean, maybe the when it bounces and it gets small again, it doesn't get quite as small as they say it does in the Big Bang. Is that the difference?
Well, it does, when it collapses down, it doesn't get really much smaller at all. It just gets a little bit smaller, but the horizon shrinks up, and then the whole universe expands a lot, and a little tiny piece of today's universe becomes the entirety of the next universe, you see.
No, I don't.
The point of all of this, one of the points of all this is, you remember one of the other things that we don't like about the early universe is
that the observable universe, it could be a much smaller
than the real
fraction
universe.
of the actual universe, and we could have missed all sorts of great stuff might be out there beyond.
Yeah.
That's a different
We
thing.
definitely have. But the thing, we had to invent a thing, because in cosmology we have all these problems, right? Remember, like, the universe is too uniform.
Join us, Jim, in planetary science.
I know. The universe...
We also have problems, but they're just like
Closer
throw
to
a rock at
home.
it.
That's right.
I should. But one of the problems in the universe, we won't go through all of it, but one of the problems is it's too uniform. Like, it's the same temperature that way, and how could it possibly know?
Right, so inflation.
So we came up with this thing, inflation, to solve this. And that's a very arbitrary thing.
I mean-
that we don't kind of like. This kind of model universe fairly naturally also makes the universe nice and smooth and
Except
uniform.
that they can like tweak some things, and maybe we have 10 billion
Right.
years left, and maybe
Don't get me
we have
wrong.
3
This
to 3.
universe
3
is
years.
taking one kind of arbitrary, random thing that we did and
And
replacing it
replacing
with
it
a
with
different
another.
one. It's not
You just like
really.
this one a little better.
It's like a little better because it makes the universe infinitely old.
I think, so
I like.
you like that if you plop humans down on the timeline randomly,
Right.
there's nothing particularly special about where they land.
Right.
And this model makes it that way.
Right. It's more Copernican.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not saying I make no value judgment on the value, the validity of the model.
Yeah.
But I don't have the same problem you have with our current thing, because the non-bouncy universe model, we're not at a random place on the timeline, but the evolution is so nonlinear that we may be at the only place we could be on the timeline.
Possible.
Yeah.
That's one way.
Well, let's see what our AI friends have to think about it.
That's
Who
intense.
said, "Sometimes I just don't understand human behavior"? Was it Lost in Space robot, Star Trek original series computer, HAL 9000, C-3PO, the alien android Ash, the Terminator Schwarzenegger style, Data, or Ava?
Ava.
Sorry, can you tell me which one Data's from again?
Data, Star Trek:
Star
The
Trek
Next
Next
Generation.
Generation.
I'm going to go for the one that's in the first Star Trek.
Just
The
the computer.
M5.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to say Ash.
It is actually C-3PO.
Oh, I thought it might be.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Got us all.
Yeah. Come with me if you want to live.
Well,
You
that
may
might
all
help.
know this one.
Arnie.
Oh, who was that?
Arnie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Terminator.
You are
Yeah,
correct.
Terminator.
Yes. I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over.
I think that's Hal.
I think also that's Hal.
I'm going to say Hal because I don't know anything else.
It is Hal.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is Hal.
I think
He's-
also you read it a
he's-
very specific. You read it
Yeah.
slightly differently than some of the others. That
It's-
was like
yeah.
more Hal-esque.
That's right after Dave discovers that Hal has killed everybody else on the ship and is looking for ways
Yeah.
to
I think
shut
I agree with
Hal
him.
off.
He should
Yeah.
take a relaxation pill.
It's probably not going to go
Yeah,
well.
it's-
Think things over. Isn't it strange to create something that hates you?
What do we have left?
You have left the Lost in Space robot,
Yep.
M5 from Star Trek: The Original Series,
Uh-huh.
Ash, the android in the original Alien, Data from The Next Generation, and Ava from X. I don't know.
I guess it could be Ava.
The
I can
one
guess her
from
again.
Alien?
So that's
I think it's
Yeah,
got to be
it's
Data.
Ash.
He made a daughter at one point.
Oh, and
But
you
she
think
didn't-
she didn't hate
She
him?
didn't hate him,
It was-
but it could be Data talking to his father and talking about
It could
lore.
be. That's
Ooh.
true.
Yeah.
But it is Ava from Ex
Oh,
Machina, and your
nice.
She
final
did hate him.
your final one. I have an extra one that's
Spoiler
not really
alert.
true to say. It does not compute.
TOS.
It's you're right thinking basics. It's
The original, the first one you had on the Lost in Space
Lost in
one.
Space
Space,
robot.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of Danger Will Robinson fame.
yeah.
Are you familiar with that quote, Danger Will Robinson?
Nope.
I didn't
Okay.
watch original Lost in Space, but I know that quote.
Well, my favorite quote, I won't make this a guess, but I'm just, it's partly to justify myself to Hannah. It is the struggle itself that is most important. We must strive to be more than we are. It does not matter that we will never reach our ultimate goal. The effort yields its own rewards. That's Data.
Data. That sounds
Star
like
Trek
Data.
Next Generation. It encapsulates what I like the most about Star Trek, which is humanity's effort to get our act together.
Let's go, guys.
Yeah.
We can do this.
Yeah. Well, while it may have felt like waiting for humanity to progress rather than regress, it was just another episode of Walkabout the Galaxy. Give us 5 stars and we'll give you a bouncy universe. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to get all our updates, and check out our website at walkaboutthegalaxy.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Walkabout the Galaxy, where our videos now feature chapter markers so you can skip to the good stuff. Whatever
It's
the
all
good
good
stuff,
stuff.
whatever the good stuff may mean to you, that's the beauty of it. You get to choose. Catch up on old episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter
At walk_the_galaxy.
and ask us questions anywhere using hashtag AskWTG. Our theme music was composed by Richard Rusick. Production assistance is provided by Logan Basinger. Thanks to our listeners in Spain and around the world. Stay safe. I'm Josh Caldwell.
I'm Addie Dove.
I'm Hannah Sargent.
And I'm Jim Cooney.
We're the Astroquarks, signing off until the next episode of Walkabout the Galaxy.
Let's go curling.
Bouncy. Boing.